put it in the, not in the chat, but in the question. Don't ask me a question in the chat because I can't follow. Hey Rob. Hi Mamu Anon Media. Okay, so put the questions in here in the sticker, question sticker. Okay. Let's do this. So first I wanna talk a little bit about Night Owl Nation, and then we'll get into questions. Okay. So if you have any questions, just put it in the thing, and then if you want to see questions answered, just vote it up. Okay. Hi Ariba, welcome. Hi Abdul. So if you've been following me, if you like the stories that I'm putting on Instagram, if you like my content, and you want me to teach you how to make content like that or how to tell stories like that, join Night Owl Nation. Hey Sarah. Basically all of my content is me giving some sort of a lesson followed by a story or example, or some sort of a story or lesson. Hey Raja, designer. Hey Jonathan. Hey Yvette. Welcome. Or like giving an example or a story and then tying it to a lesson. Like it's connecting the dots between a story or example and a lesson. That's all I am doing. And that's basically what we teach and practice at Night Owl Nation. And this is how Night Owl Nation is different from any other online courses. So it's an 11-week program. And Night Owl Nation, we don't just teach one way. We teach, and every week we meet in small groups. So small groups of 6 or less. And we practice storytelling there. So, and through that practice, we learn something new. And then next week you come back, and on Sundays you'll get a lesson. And then on the week, you know, whenever your small group meeting is, you practice that. So it's actually 2 parts. You have to join Night Owl Nation, and then you have to join a small group. So I would highly, highly, highly recommend you to join a small group, because in April 9th is when it starts. And once we start on April 9th, you cannot join a small group anymore. You can still join Night Owl Nation, and you can attend all the Sunday service, but you won't be able to get in a small group unless you join a small group before April 9th. And they're limited space. There's only about 25 spots left on, I think probably less now. So I highly suggest you do it immediately if you want to get in on this next program. If you don't get by the 9th, what's going to happen is you're going to have to wait 11 weeks before we start the next one again. All right. Thanks, Sarah. Okay, let's get started. I'm going to start off with the questions. Okay. The Toby Areyemo asks, can you elaborate more on core purpose of narrative identity? I don't know what that is. I don't know what narrative identity is. So maybe Toby, can you elaborate on that? I'm not sure I've never heard of that, narrative identity. So maybe you can kind of elaborate that. Yeah, let me know if you can put in the comments what that means. In the meantime, I'm going to move on to the Itsu Zaifa Design. Happy Ramadan. Happy Ramadan. Ramadan Kareem, everybody. All right. Next question. It's Ju Zaifa Design again. How to find content for Reels on Instagram. Okay. So all of the Reels that I put out, 99% of the Reels that I put out is like this, right? I'm going live right now answering questions. This is going to get saved, recorded, and then we're going to take clips from here and post it on Reels, right? Also, I have a podcast where, it's a video podcast. So whatever I say on there, we're gonna cut that up, and we're gonna post it as Reel or TikTok or whatever it is. So I think the best way to make video, the easiest and fastest and quickest way to make video content for short form content is to start a video podcast and then just take clip of it and post it on the social media, right? Sorry, I only had like 2 hours of sleep last night, so my brain might not be functioning fully. Okay, but the more important part is this. The reason why I think I have so much interesting stories and content, like I never run out of I never ever run out of content idea. I never run out of stories. Like every day, like for example, I posted a video the other day talking about the character, the Tyler from the menu, right? So I saw something in that character, and then I connected the dot from that character to a real life lesson, right? And my brain is doing that constantly, 24/7. Every time I watch a documentary, every time I watch a movie, I hear a story, every time I see something in the streets, 24/7, I'm just constantly connecting the dot. Oh, how does this connect to something else? How does this connect? And when you're constantly connecting the dots in your head, you're just coming up with millions of stories all the time, right? And I'm just telling that all the time. And that's exactly what we're teaching and practicing at Night Owl Nation. So at Night Owl Nation, that's basically what we do every week. We tell a story and we try to connect it to a lesson. We tell a story, connect it to a lesson. So if you want to learn how to make tell stories like that where you make people say, "Oh, I never thought of it that way," definitely join Night Owl Nation, because 11 weeks of this, and it'll completely change the way you think. It'll completely change the way you run your business. And not only that, it's like a great practice to storytelling is such a great practice to learn more about yourself, because one of our manifesto at Night Owl Nation manifesto is all about dropping our ego. And once we've completely dropped our ego and we come from this like place of authenticity and tell our stories, we actually learn so much about ourselves, and then we learn about the world, how the world operates, and then how we fit into that world, which is basically what branding is. Branding is, how do you fit into this world, right? What do you have to provide for this world? What value do you have to provide? So something like that. So I hope that answers your question. I have a question here from YouTube that I'm going to answer. It's from Lenny Ramirez. How do you figure out unknown for your agency, specifically something the client wants built? When you're working with clients, what I would highly suggest you do is constantly ask questions. Like, I see a lot of people do this because we're like, oh, I'm the designer, I'm the consultant, or I'm the copywriter, I'm the whatever, right? So I'm the expert. So I need to be constantly teaching the client, giving client information. That's not how it works. If you're in a client service business, you should constantly be asking questions, and you should constantly be learning more about the client. And I guarantee you, if you do that and you listen, you actively listen. Not like just listen and out the other, and then just like in the back of your mind, you're just like thinking about what you want to say, but actually really listen. Then what's gonna happen is you're gonna make that connection. You're gonna be more present, and you're gonna be able to figure out exactly what the client wants. I think that's actually the number one problem in like freelancing and this consulting industry, is that rather than trying to be present and listen and really like trying to feel what this client is feeling, right? It's kind of like when you go on a date and you're in a conversation with a friend, and if like one person is like, all they're doing is just talking about themselves, like here I'll tell you this. If you go into any meeting and all you're doing is you talk most of the time, at the end of that meeting, that client is gonna feel like you don't know, they don't know anything about you, or you don't know anything about them. But if you let the client talk like 90% of the time, and you just listen, at the end of that meeting, even though you didn't say anything, they're gonna be like, oh, I feel like I really know this person, and I feel like I really trust it, because in today's society, in the modern age, nobody listens. When like everybody's like busy talking, but nobody's really listening. So most people feel like they're not being heard. Most people feel like they're being misunderstood. Nobody's listening to me. I feel like nobody really cares. So that if one person comes to you and really like actively listen, they lean in and they ask good questions and they really listen, it's gonna make that person feel like a princess. It's gonna make that person feel like they're the most important person in the world. So listening, like actually listening is, I think, the missing thing that most people are not doing in order to close sales. Okay, let's move on. Next question. Sumi Hawi. How do I start the process of storytelling towards healing? Okay, so we have a lot of people in our community. How do I start the process of storytelling towards healing? So maybe you can elaborate, but do you mean like tell stories to heal yourself, or are you talking about you're in the business of healing and then you want to tell stories about it? I'll answer both. Okay. So a lot of our members at Night Owl Nation, like a lot of the people at Night Owl Nation, our job is like therapist. It's like coaching, where we help people heal. Like where we, it's not just like a cut and dry thing. It's not like me, like teaching storytelling or teaching marketing, or it's not like a lot of people sell service or they're coaches, and where it's not like, it might be more spiritual, or it might be more to do with like, with like self inner work and things like that. So the biggest mistake I see people make in that area is they use this woo language, like that, like, oh, like all you see like all the self-help, like the healing journey and all of that, like they use the same exact language, right, over and over and over. Like it's so cliche. It's just like it sounds like everyone else. And the problem is, the people that when you use those language, when you use like language like, oh, you gotta manifest, or like energy, and like when you start using those words, vibration and shit like that, what happens is the people who are gonna get that are already like, they're already sold. You don't have to sell them. The people who are into that shit, like that are all woo woo and shit, like you don't have to sell them. They're already sold. So you're preaching to the choir. So if you're in that spiritual space, like wellness, or like all these kind of like more high level concepts, what you need to do is you need to bring it down to earth, and you need to make it for the layman's, the everyday people of the world who are not into the woo shit, right? Because that's who you want to convert. Like you don't want customers that are already like fucking all into that shit, and like those are not necessarily your customer. The real customers that you want to attract are the ones that are not into yoga, not into spiritual shit, not into the human design, and not into that stuff. You want to convert them. You want to help them, right? You want to convert them. So what we need to do is we need to find a way to take that language, right? A good example is this. I work with a lot of intuitive coach, mediums, psychics, like those type of people, like some of the biggest in this space I've worked with. Okay. And they talk about intuition, and they're like, oh yeah, intuition, and it's like, it's this, and they talk about the angels and the spirit animal and all of that shit, and you lost me. Like the people that you actually would have converted are sitting there like, what the fuck are they talking about? Fucking angels and fucking, like, what is this woo shit, right? And they're just gonna leave. But imagine, like, let's say I'm going through a relationship problem or something like that, and somebody goes like, when you started dating that guy who's like, from day one you saw the red flag, right? And then you kept dating him anyway, and then 6 months later when he cheats on you, and you're like, I knew it, I knew something was wrong, right? What is that? That's intuition. That's that red flag, that intuition that's deep inside you that you knew, but you didn't act on, right? And that's kind of what an intuitive coach does. I've honed my skill in that intuition, so I can sense those things. Like if you start off like that, then people are gonna be like, oh, I get it now. I see what you mean. Yeah, I could. And what I did there was, I didn't just fucking say the thing. I didn't just fucking give the lesson of this the cliche, same old, like Wikipedia, the inspirational quotes that you see. I didn't just fucking regurgitate some stupid quote. What I did was I did that, gave the lesson, and I backed it up with an example, like for example, and that's what storytelling is. That example is where I'm telling the story. And that's what we do at Night Owl Nation. That's what we're practicing. So by the time you're done with this, you're going to have a bunch of stories in your back pocket you can constantly tell. And you're going to be constantly coming up with so many stories and so many like connecting the dots that you'll never, ever, ever run out of content ideas. Okay. All right, let me quickly talk about the healing of storytelling. So what I always say is this. This is how life works. You're born. You grow up, and a lot of us, we have childhood trauma. Like I'm not talking about like some fucking, some rock bottom moment, but we have this childhood trauma. Like when maybe like I lost my mom at the mall, and I got really like that shocked me, or like we have those memories, right? Those little, I call those the stories of trauma. Okay, and what that does, that story gets imprinted in your brain, and for the rest of your life, as you become an adult, you keep telling that story to yourself over and over and over and over and over. Let's say I got bullied as a kid, and like people call me ugly. People grow up as an adult. It's like, oh, I'm ugly, I'm ugly, I'm ugly, I'm ugly. Like you're constantly telling yourself, I'm ugly, I'm ugly. As an adult, you're telling yourself that story from the childhood, right? So that's the story of trauma. And then at some point, you have to have a story of healing. And the story of healing is when you realize that you're doing that and you fix yourself, right? So those are the two. So when I tell a story, like usually like a hero's journey story or something like that, that's how I start. Oh, I used to be like this and this happened, blah, blah, until one day this happened and I healed, right? So that's the before and the after, the transformation, the lesson. So this is why when you're at Night Owl Nation, at the end of that 11 weeks, everything that you thought to be true is going to be turned out to be false. Everything, like right now, you think you know who you are. You think you know your authentic self. You think you know what your brand is. Oh, my brand is this. Oh, my strength is this. Oh, I'm all about this. No, you don't fucking know that shit, okay? Those are all shit that your ego made up that wants you to think that you're that, okay? That wants you to think, oh, my brand is all about that. But I fucking guarantee you it's not. And what's going to happen is at the end of that 11 weeks, your entire life is going to flip upside down. It's like, holy shit, I didn't even want to do that. Oh, holy shit, actually my strength is this. Holy shit, that's my weakness. Holy shit. And you're not only going to learn more about you, but you're going to start to love yourself, like love the real you. All of the little shit that you're worried about right now, that you're embarrassed about, you're worried about judgment, you're going to love even all of those parts. And that's when you're going to come out and, as your real authentic self. So that's like a added bonus that you get. In addition to learning storytelling, all of that fucking internal work and all that therapy shit, that's an extra bonus you get. It's like storytelling is therapy. Okay, let's move on to the next question. Okay, next question is... Oh, okay. Both. Okay, good. So I answered that. Okay. Another question. Again, Sumi Awi. Oh, I'm from Africa, Kenya. I'm new here. Welcome. Welcome, Sumi. Okay. Yeah, we have members from all over the world. Like literally. And that's like really the beautiful, beautiful thing about Night Owl Nation is that, like in your small group, you might have somebody from the US, somebody from Canada, somebody from Nigeria, somebody from Italy, somebody from France. And what you're going to realize is we're so different, right? In our age, what we do, our culture, our language, our religion, political views, whatever it is, we're so different. Yet through storytelling, we realize we're fucking human. We're just humans. That's the beauty about storytelling. Why is it that the first book ever printed was the Bible that's been translated in basically every fucking language and people get that? It's because it's storytelling. Like when we tell a human story, it doesn't matter what your background is. It doesn't matter what religion you are. It doesn't matter where you're from. There's there's a human connection there that happens. Like I think we realize how similar we are than different, Okay, next question. Andre Aita. Advice for non-profit storytelling. if you're a nonprofit, you gotta do what Cherry Water is doing. Like, you have to tell stories about the people that you're helping, or about about the personal stories of the cause. Okay, a lot of times, I think a lot of people when I talk to people in nonprofit, they're like trying to throw data, trying to throw problem solution, blah, blah, blah. Nobody gives a fuck. Okay, you want people to donate, you gotta tell them personal stories. Okay, don't talk about over 1 million people are so suffering with this. Do not do that. Nobody gives a fuck. That if you say over 1 million people are suffering, that doesn't mean anything to them. Okay, what you need to do is pick one of those 1 million people and tell their personal story. And that's the way you get them, right? That's exactly what Cherry Water does, right? Cherry Water, he talks about the story of like the one girl in Africa who had to travel hours to get one barrel of water and then have to bring it back hours. But on the way back, she drops the water and it breaks. And instead of going back home empty-handed, she hangs herself in a tree. And the reason why she did that is not because of the water, it's because of the shame that she's gonna feel when she goes back to the village without the water. And this, like, when you hear a story like that of how on a daily basis not having water affects these people, that's when people are going to be moved. Not when you say, oh, these millions of people are not having, like, nobody gives a shit about that. Okay, so yes, tell personal story of one person, not 1 million people. Okay, next question is from Amin Terif. Amin Terfi. How I tell my starting story. Like, I repair store of computers. Then I discover Photoshop, then move to marketing. Okay, what you're telling there is not a story. There's a difference between a story and a narrative. Okay, or there's a story. Okay, what you're doing is that's called a narrative. It's like a fucking autobiography. Oh, I was born here, I went to this, and I went to this school, and then I did this, and then I did this, and then I did this, and then I graduated, and I went to school, blah, blah, blah. That's how everybody tells a story. Like, that's not a fucking story. That's just like a series of things that happen, okay? In order for it to be a story, there has to be like an up and down, right? So what I would say is this. Let me pull the question back up. So what I would say is this. Don't try to tell your fucking life story, okay? Break your life story into pieces and tell me about an exact event that happened, okay? Because that is the turning. Every story has like a climax, blah, 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 and the climax. And then at that climax, there's a turning point, okay? And that turning point is like, until this happened, and then boom, something happened, and then and then there's a resolution after that, right? Focus on that turning point. If you can't tell me a 5-second event that happened, like until one day I walked into this room and I saw this, and then this guy told me this, and then immediately, I like, if you can't tell me, if you can't draw a picture of a specific scene for me, then you don't have a story. Okay, I mean, I'm getting to the kind of specifics of story structure, but anyone here that's in the Night Owl Nation member, you already know this, right? Because we fucking talk about structure of story all the fucking time. So Amin Terfi, you right now are making the mix. Okay, I'll tell you guys this. No matter how fucking good you think you are in storytelling, I tell you, you fucking suck in storytelling. Do you know how many people come into Night Owl Nation thinking that, oh, I'm good in storytelling, I'm a great storyteller, and they fucking come into Night Owl Nation and they fucking get embarrassed day one because they realize they fucking suck in storytelling? Like, this is what happens. So every time a new member joins Night Owl Nation, they share their story thinking, oh, like, this is an amazing story, and then we just break down why that story doesn't work and how to do it better. And then, through there, you're going to learn. So all of the things that, like, most of these things, there's some basic fucking shit that everybody's doing wrong when it comes to storytelling. And you're gonna, boom, learn that in that first 2 weeks, you're gonna already break that. So just from that alone, like you're just from that first 2 weeks, you're already gonna be much better storyteller because of that. Okay. So and the shit that a lot of people, do those mistakes. When a Night Owl Nation, like when a seasoned Night Owl Nation member sees that, they're gonna pick that shit apart and they're gonna know right away why it sucks. So I'm not gonna go into the detail of that. Okay. If you want to learn the details of the story structure, how to structure the story, what not to do, what to add, what to remove, all of that shit, you gotta join Night Owl Nation. Okay, Rob. Hey, son, can you speak about the core ingredients of a compelling story? For me, the most important thing is that there has to be a conflict, right? There has to be a conflict and then resolution, right? But that's like the basics of storytelling, so I don't have to tell you that. But it's like exactly what I said, Rob. One of the things that we always check for in a story is that where is that 5-second point? Because this is how people tell a story. Oh, I used to really hate myself, and I thought I wasn't good enough. I was telling all these stories to myself until one day, like they don't even say until one day. And then I grew up and I became more confident. And I started to love myself, and through yoga and did that. I'm like, huh? Like, what exactly happened? How did yoga do that? Like, let's say I'm a yoga teacher, right? How did yoga change your life? How did it make you confident? I don't fucking know. I don't tell me what happened. That's how it becomes. That's why when you try to tell a vague story like that, like nobody's gonna really get that. So you have to give them a 5-second, like give me that 5-second mark. Like explain, where were you? Explain the room. Who else was with you? When was it? What day was it? What time was it? Describe the room for me. Give me the fucking specific scene from that story. Right? And if you can't do that, if you can't give me that 5-second that turning point, that climax point of that, then it's not gonna work. For me, here's how I tell a story. Let's say I was a yoga teacher and I'm trying to talk about yoga. Like when I first went to Baptiste yoga, like level 1, I didn't know anything about yoga, right? But then on day 1, like on day 1, it was like a 90-minute yoga, and it was supposed to be like an easy class, but I was like dying because it was so hard. I was like sweating everywhere. And then by day 4, I kept doing it over and over and over. And at that time, I was just so exhausted. Like my whole body is like exhausted, sweating. And then after this 90-minute class, I was lying there, and the last pose is always like Shavasana, where you just lie there, right? And you're just at that moment. In that moment, it was a dark room. It was a hot yoga room, and they also they turned off the heater and they opened up the window, so it was like a nice breeze coming in, and like my mind was blank. And in that exhaustion, my body I can't even feel my body. I don't even have the energy to use my brain. And lying there in that dark room, without any noise, like I've lost the ability to bullshit. And all the truth started coming up. All my ego was completely disappeared. And I started thinking about all the bullshit that I was doing. And one of the complaints that I was complaining about is how my employees don't give a shit. It's like, they don't care. They're not like they don't want to help me, and I gotta do everything myself. And I was blaming my employees. And without that ego, what the realization I came to is that actually all of my employee wants to help me. They want to be. I won't let them because my ego is telling me that I have to be the most important person. I have to be the one that takes care of everything. I have to be the one that's needed. Like, this place cannot run without me. That was all my ego telling me. But in that moment, I'm sitting on that fucking yoga mat in the pitch black room after I've been fucking sweating out a gallon. When I lost my ability to bullshit is when that shit came up. Okay? Now, if you've never done yoga, does that make you want to do yoga now? That's it. That's how you do it. Okay. Okay. Next question. The Toby. Okay. Again, the Toby Areyemo. Son, I was talking about the history of self and the integration of your life experiences to create a personal brand and how to make that story stick and sellable. Okay. So basically, like, you mean how do you take your story and turn, like, make it into, like, make it sellable, right? How to sell yourself. You see, I just did it. I just did it with yoga. Okay? I just did it with the yoga, right? If I'm a yoga teacher and I'm trying to sell people on why you should do yoga, let's say you've never done yoga before, I'm trying to get you to do yoga, that's the story that I would tell, right? But here's the thing. Your life is not one fucking story. Okay? It's not like you're not writing an autobiography. You have tons and tons and tons of stories in your life that taught you all different kind of lessons, right? And selling is teaching. So all those lessons that you learn, if you teach those lessons, that's how you sell. What I did was I taught you the importance of yoga, the importance of what yoga does to you in a very specific story. And now you're sold on yoga, right? So here's the thing. One of the first things that we do at Night Owl Nation, day one, I'm going to tell you this. Day one, hey guys, don't put your questions in the chat because I can't read them. So put your questions in the sticker tab. Day one, what I tell everyone is, do not fucking try to tie your fucking story to your business. Don't try to fucking take a story and then try to sell something with it. Because what ends up happening is whenever somebody does that, it's like trying to force fit a puzzle that doesn't fit. And there's something off. And when the audience hears that story, it's like, what? I don't get it. It's like something's missing because the story doesn't match the lesson. But when the story matches the lesson perfectly, like when I told the story of Tyler from the Menu, how he talks all the talk, but he can't cook for shit, and how I tie that to a creative director who talks all the talk but can't even fucking design. Like I perfectly tie that. When the story ties perfectly like that, it's almost like an aha moment for people, and they're like, "Whoa, I never thought of it that way." But that shit is not gonna happen if you take a story and then try to force it to this lesson because I need to sell this and I'm going to try to force it together. That shit's not going to happen. That's just going to fucking piss off the audience. It's like, this guy's fucking making up shit trying to sell me something. And that's how you come off as salesy. Okay? So throughout the 11 weeks of Night Owl Nation, like, and Night Owl Nation, if you try to like ask questions like that, I was like, how do I tie this to my business? People are going to fucking shut you down. Because that's the number one reason why people cannot learn storytelling. Number one reason why people cannot tell authentic stories is because you're trying to fake fit this lesson, fake fit your business sales point to this fake story. So it doesn't work. It seems like it's fucking made up. That's why every story that everyone tells sounds exactly the fucking same. So fucking cliche. That's why. So yeah, do not try to connect it. Damn, like a lot of these questions that I'm getting right now, if you were at Night Owl Nation, those are all answered. Like, you wouldn't even be asking me these questions if you were at Night Owl Nation. Okay. Official Kaushal Kumar. How I can start learning about storytelling? That's a very, very, very broad question. Okay. Number one, go to my website, click on Night Owl Nation, and join Night Owl Nation. That's how you start. Okay? But truthfully, this is how you do it. Every time you okay. I have a perfect idea for you. Go to this website, practicestorytelling.com. If you go to practicestorytelling.com, I have a 5-day challenge that teaches you exactly how to practice storytelling. Okay? one of the things that we do is you have memories in your head from your childhood or from your past, right? And the reason why you have those memories is because something dramatic happened. Something that happened that day made an impression on you. Okay? So start from there. Start from a single, like a moment, and just go back and dig in and keep trying. Just try to tell that story first exactly as it happened, like down to every second, every detail. Tell it exactly what happened. Okay? And then after you're done telling that, you can record it as a video or you can write it down or whatever you do. The next thing I want you to do is I want you to do the same thing again. Tell that exact same story one more time. Okay? And then I want you to tell that exact same story one more time. Okay? Tell it 3 times. Tell the same story 3 times. And every time you tell it, you're going to learn something new. You're going to, oh, this is actually what happened. Oh, this is what that was about. Oh, and then like light bulbs are going to start coming. But I mean, all of this is like, we lay this shit out for you. We fucking put it into an 11-week program where you can, you can do it. So the easiest way to do it is join Night Owl Nation. Okay, next question. Fehin Adeyanju. Is there anything like sharing too much in storytelling? So I feel like everything that, guys, I'm not trying to like fucking promote Night Owl Nation and force Night Owl Nation. I'm not trying to oversell this shit, right? It's just that truly everything that you guys are asking is like all the shit that we cover in Night Owl Nation. So that's why I'm saying that, right? Okay. So is there oversharing? Yes. So one of the things that we talk about a lot in Night Owl Nation is authenticity and vulnerability. And people often think that vulnerability is like me coming on and telling my fucking sob story and blah blah blah, oversharing and like making people feel uncomfortable and shit like that, right? That's not vulnerability, okay? That's actually you kind of being selfish. Every time I go to some program, some fucking, some yoga program or some like seminar or where people come and share their story, there's always that one fucking person that always wants to share all the time and tell us all of their fucking sob stories about like how, all of their like abuses and all of this, traumatic moments and all of that. This is how you know you're ready to share a story or not. If you are the victim of that story and you're blaming something on the villain, you're blaming someone or something that happened to you, that means you're not ready to tell the story, because that means you're still in the story of trauma. You haven't had a story of healing yet. And that's how it easily is. Like when I hear a story, I can clearly sense, okay, this person, all they're doing is just playing the victim and just constantly complaining about everyone and everything else. Or like if this person is like talking about how this boss was treating them like this, but I overcame it anyway, like that's not a story of, because the story isn't about you. It's about your boss. It's about how much you hate your boss. So that's not a story of healing. That means that means you're not ready to share that story. Okay? And if you really think about it, there's only going to be a few stories where you're completely ready to tell it because you completely overcame and you've healed from it. But most times people don't tell stories like that. They tell a story from a place of victimhood, which means you're oversharing, which means you shouldn't be telling that story. Like that's what happened to Kanye, right? It just sounds like you're fucking complaining, okay? It doesn't sound like you've healed. Okay. Guys, please put the questions in the sticker because I can't keep up with the chat. Like if you put it in the chat, most likely I'm not going to read it. Okay, Miles.online asked, should impact always be the intention for storytelling? No. The intention for storytelling should always be human connection. Like this is what I fucking see, right? I see so many of these creators out here, influencers, coaches, blah, 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 making content. And they're trying so hard to make an impact, make an influence. Like I want to inspire, I want to motivate. No, stop fucking fucking doing that, okay? Like, when's the last time you were impacted, you were motivated or inspired by somebody trying to motivate you? Like, the thing that we're motivated by, the ones that we're impacted by, the things that we're inspired by are just watching somebody doing something, being completely authentically themselves. That's what inspires us. That's what impacts us, right? It's the perfect example I give is when you watch Hunger Games. Like, Hunger Games, in that whole series, they started an entire revolution, right? Like, everybody in that world was inspired by Katniss Everdeen to revolt and to rise up and to speak against the Capitol, right? But the thing is, did Katniss Everdeen go around like trying to be a motivational speaker on stage? He's like, come on guys, come on. Like, did she try to fucking inspire people? No. The only thing she did was she saw that her sister, her little sister, was about to get killed because she was getting picked for the Hunger Games. And so what she did was she volunteered. She raised her hand and volunteered to take her sister's place in order to save her sister's life. Okay? She didn't try to inspire. She didn't do that trying to inspire people. She didn't do that trying to get people to rise up. That's not why she did it. She did it because she was just authentically being courageous. But then because nobody's ever volunteered before, when everyone saw that, they were inspired by that courage. They were inspired by that authenticity. And that's what led them, not her trying to lead, okay? So do not ever, whenever you make content, when you teach, when you sell, do not try to fucking change people's mind. Don't try to impact. Don't try to inspire. Don't try to do anything. Don't try to be a fucking savior, okay? Don't try to be Jesus, okay? Just be you. Just be yourself, and just the things that you're fucking scared to do, the things that you're scared to say. Oh, I don't want to say this because I don't want these people to hate me. Oh, I don't want to talk shit about these people because I don't want them to hate. Like, say it. That's how you inspire people. Okay? Next. Damn, you guys are I was like exhausted because I only slept like 2 hours, but now I'm getting all fired up. Okay, the creative one. How can I tell a 1 hour story? How can I tell a 1 hour story in like 10 minutes? And how can I get people to keep listening the moment I start story? Okay. There's no fucking story in the world that should be 1 hour long. Okay? Like, if you cannot tell that story in 3 sentences, you don't have a story. I'm sorry. If you cannot tell a story in 3 sentences, you do not have a story. Whatever story you have, put it in this. First sentence, the old you. Tell what was the old you like? Oh, I used to be like this. I used to lie all the time. And then what's the actual thing that happened? Until one day, I couldn't lie to my client and I just told the truth. And then what's the outcome? Oh, the client gave me a bonus for being honest with them. So I learned that authenticity and honesty can actually help in business. 1, 2, 3. That's it. Now, once you have those 3, then I can elaborate and go into the details. But if you don't have those 3 elements of a story, then you do not have a story. Because this is what fucking people do. They just tell a story. It's like, oh yeah, so I guess this happened and this happened. Oh, I guess the story really starts here. Oh, I don't know why I was going with that. But I guess the lesson of the story, that's not a fucking story, okay? Like, if you don't have those 3 things, you don't have a story. A lot of people think that storytelling is like, oh, the way you talk. Oh, this. Don't say ums or don't say like too much. Pause in between. Add drama. Like, have internet. Like, no, that's not fucking storytelling. That's you. That's how you talk. Okay. But that is not storytelling. Okay. And storytelling is not like using some fucking fancy words like once upon a time or like, oh, to my surprise. Like, that's not fucking storytelling, right? The reason why most people fucking suck in storytelling is because they don't know how to structure their story. It's not because they don't know how to speak properly. It's not because they don't know how to use fancy words. It's because they don't fucking have the structure. I never use fancy words. I say like I fucking stutter all the time. I fucking mess up my grammar all the time, and I'm not like I don't pause and do all of that shit. I just fucking talk like me, but I have great stories. So in order for you to be a great storytellers, you need to have great stories. And if you don't have that in 3 sentences, that means you don't have a story. And that's exactly what we're teaching at Night Owl Nation. At Night Owl Nation, we're not gonna fucking be like, oh, use these words like these, and we're not gonna fucking talk about that shit. Right? When somebody starts doing that, when somebody starts using fancy words and shit, like I actually hate that shit. Because like most people on social media and things like that, they're not, especially like to foreign audience and shit, like you should actually dummy down all of your language. You should tell story as if you're talking to like a fucking 6th grader, okay? Like that's how you should tell the story. The way you get them is by having the right story, coming up with the right structure, connecting the dot between this story and this lesson. Connecting those dots is how you tell a good story. And that's exactly what we do at Night Owl Nation. 10-minute story. No, you can't tell us. If you can't tell a story in 30 seconds, you don't have a story. Okay, Mad DRX 8. What makes people listen to your story and not someone else's? Yeah, I mean, I think that's exactly the thing. Like what I just said, right? Like if you, yeah, I mean, most people tell stories like, oh yeah, and then this happened, and then this happened, and then this happened, and then this happened, and then nobody gives a shit. Like, yeah, in order for you to hold them on, like keep them on the edge, you have to create constant mystery, right? You have to keep them on, like there has to be a mystery factor like all the time. So you have to raise a question and then answer it, and as soon as you answer, you have to raise another question and then answer it. And as soon as you answer, you have to raise another question, right? For example, when that cherry water guy tells a story, that he tells the whole story of like this girl going to the thing, and then on the way back, she dropped her water, and she was so scared of being shamed by her village that she hung herself, right? But right after he says that, she hung herself, right? That it's like, cause so the whole time people are going like, oh, what's gonna happen? What's gonna happen to her? And then as soon as they hear her hung herself, oh, that's what happened. And then immediately he goes, so that sounded like, what? Is this a true story? I had to find out, so I decided to go there to find out. So immediately he raises another question immediately. So now it's like, what? You went to Africa? Okay, what happened next? And now they're on the edge, and then you answer what happened, and then immediately you have to raise another point. It's like, oh, what happened next? Like, so that constant like sense of mystery is what's needed in order to keep them on the. Okay, next question. Fritz Lifestyle. I post a lot of IG stories every day to document my daily hustle and grind. Is it too much? Or should I just post one topic niche at a time? No, I think it's really good actually. That's exactly what I actually want to do. Like I didn't have a lot of time to do that, but what I'm going to start doing is every day, like whatever I'm working on, if I'm working on a content or if I'm working on a client project or if I'm working on whatever it is, I'm gonna document it, like give you like behind the scenes, like and the beauty is like the people that are watching your story, those are your real fans. Like people that are like looking at your feed posts, those aren't your fans, right? Like how many accounts do you follow that you're not really a fan of, right? Like I mean, like people follow Nike, people follow Pinkberry or whatever, but they're not fucking hardcore. Like they're not like, like every day looking, like they're just following it. But like how many accounts do you follow that you would never ever buy anything from, right? So it doesn't mean shit. The ones where you're watching the story, those are the brands that you're really connecting with. So I would say like people are underutilizing stories. Because I know a lot of people that post a lot on the feed, but never post a story. And it's because, here's the thing. A lot of people focus so much on the fucking followers, the likes, and the views. Like, that's just top of the funnel. But if you look at most people, Their bottom of the funnel is so small that none of those people are actually converting to customers. And that's because you haven't done this. You haven't nurtured them. Like once you get them to follow you and get them in the top of the funnel, the next thing you have to do is you have to nurture them. You have to build relationships with them. And how do you do that? Through stories. Like Instagram stories, I mean. So yeah, definitely do that. Definitely do all your behind the scenes on stories. People love behind the scenes. Okay. Soy Franco Torres. How can we make our life journey a story worth to be told? That's a great question. I love this question. And here's why. Every single one of you guys have an amazing story. Because every single life story is like human story is fucking amazing. Every fucking story, if I actually like meet anyone and I really hear like their story, what happened in their life, it's a roller coaster. Everybody's like that. Okay? It's just that you don't think you are. You like I used to be like that. Oh, my life isn't that interesting though. Like like all these people had this rock bottom moment where they were living in the street, being homeless and fucking crackhead, and then one day I turned it all around. I don't have that story. I never had a rock bottom moment like that. Okay, so we think that our life is like boring and blah blah blah, but trust me. Your life was fucking exciting as hell. Think about how many times in your life you've had moments you're like, oh fuck, my life is over. How many times you had like, how many roller coasters, emotional roller coasters have you gone through in your life? Right? Those are all fucking interesting stories, but you just don't tell them. That's the thing. And you don't know how to turn that into an actual like set up conflict and resolution and tie into a lesson, right? So if you really, that's on the higher level how you do it. But in a practical way, like how do you actually do it? Like if you join Night Owl Nation and you practice every week, you'll get there. And you'll see at Night Owl Nation, one of the things that you're gonna do, because this is what everybody does. When somebody first joins Night Owl Nation, the first story they tell is always some grand, big, huge story. And one of the things that we're constantly doing at Night Owl Nation is how to tell small stories. How to take that small little story and make it interesting. And that's what we're really doing, okay? So don't make your story so big. We're going to teach you how to take those small stories and make it interesting. Okay, next question. Rohit, why don't you promote your storytelling course here, which is on Domestika? That's a great question. Guys, I have a Domestika course called The Art of Storytelling for Freelancers and Creators. And it's on Domestika. It has over 20,000 students. It has 99% positive reviews. So if you want to take that, you can do that in Domestika. Maybe I'll put the link in my bio. Okay. Yeah, I guess I don't really talk about Domestika course, but yeah, and also I feel like if you join Night Owl Nation, like I cover a lot of the same thing that's in that course. So I guess that's why. Okay. Guys, you need to fucking understand this shit about me, okay? People always ask me, why do you charge $5? Why don't you charge why don't you have an annual subscription, right? You know why? Because I'm not trying to trick you to fucking buy a Night Owl Nation and then get stuck and then make it like impossible for you to cancel. That's not what I'm not trying to trick you, okay? I'm not trying to sell you. I don't give a fuck, okay? I'm not trying to sit here and fucking like scam you out of money. That's not what I'm trying to do. I'm here because I'm so fucking frustrated how these people are telling terrible stories. They're not really critically thinking, and they're just doing all the cliche shit when very easily they can learn a few things and get much better at it. And that fucking frustrates the fuck out of me. That it frustrates me so much that people tell such terrible stories. When with just a little bit of improvement, it can be so much better. And that's the reason why I'm doing it. Not because I'm trying to sit here and fucking be a millionaire fucking pro marketer, okay? So, like, that's why I'm not pushing it, right? when you join Night Owl Nation, the reason why I don't sell annual member is because like I don't want you to fucking pay for an annual membership and join and then feel like you're stuck. Okay, I don't want you to sign up and forget that you're paying. Like we make it super easy for you to cancel the membership because I want our product to be like Spotify. I want our product to be like Netflix, so that if your credit card fails, I want you to do everything in your power to reach out to us to make sure that we have your latest credit card because you value the product that much. Do you understand what I mean? I don't want to fucking trick you into buying anything, okay? Okay. Abdul Alman 3M. Can I implement storytelling concept in a single image design? I think, that's not necessarily like my domain, but that guy visualize value, that account visualize value. They do that, like they usually that like do one illustration. Those things are super hard to do. They're not as easy, but yeah, but those do well. Okay. Hey makes asks thoughts on how to deal with big creator copying you. Okay. This is not just with big creators, but it's really with anyone. Stop worrying about people copying you. People fucking copy me all the time, okay? And trust me, a lot of times when you think they're copying you, they're not really copying you. Okay? We all like in the beginning, when I first started Instagram, like I would talk about a concept, like I'll talk about something, and then I see another big creator talking about it the next day. I'm like, wait, that's just exactly what I posted yesterday. And I'm like, oh, he copied me. But it turns out he doesn't even fucking know me. Okay? So a lot of times that when we say, Instagram is shadow banning me. Oh, it's because, these people copy me. That was my idea. They stole my... No, it's not. It's not your idea, okay? Ideas are fucking dime a dozen, okay? And you know how many fucking accounts copy mine? Like, you know how many accounts copy my design? Like, with way more followers than me? You know how many people just literally rip off my content and post? I don't care. I don't give a fuck. You know why? Because at the end of the day, don't worry about those people cheating you. Blah, blah, blah. Oh, what if people take advantage of me? That's what people say. Over time, the truth will always fucking come out. If that really is the truth, you give it long enough time, it always come out. There's no point sitting there and be like blaming the whole fucking world, like, oh, Instagram is backing me, this person is copying me. Like, all that is you're doing is you're just playing the victim. Okay? Like, what are you gonna do? Okay, they copied you. What can you do? There's nothing you can do. Okay? So it's just do you. Just keep doing you authentically as possible, and nobody will be able to copy you, right? Yeah, I don't know what else to say about that. Yeah, all of that energy and time you're wasting worrying about that shit, put it into like something else. Put it into actually making content, Okay. Miss J Sows. Son, what times are the Night Owl Nation meetings held? Thank you. Okay, so the Sunday service is at 12 p.m. Eastern, so noon Eastern on Sundays, and that is there's a replay, so you don't have to attend live. You can watch the replay. Small group meetings are happening all different times, all different time zones, things like that. So you can actually pick the time that you're free, so that you can attend your small group meetings. And so after you join Night Owl Nation, there's a form where you have to apply to join a small group. And when you fill out the form, there's like one of the things it'll ask you is like, what times are you available? What day times you're available for small group meetings? So, and then we'll match you up with the right small group that fits your availability. Okay, next question. Ander. Hi, artists. Hi, Sarah. I just saw you guys on YouTube. Okay. And Ander asks, what do you think about the contribution of AI, like ChatGPT, to create good storytelling? Can be helpful or not? Not yet, I don't think. Because I've actually tried giving it prompts like, okay, tell me a story about how authenticity affects business. And then it told a story. And then I was like, make it more conversational. And then it did it. And I said, can you make it more vulnerable? Like, and everything that it came was, everything that AI did was, it gave me something that a mediocre storyteller would give me. Like if I went to some average mediocre copywriter, it was giving me that basically, right? Like and design, I think everything AI does is the same thing. Okay, if you're mediocre, if you're just average, if you're just that cliche content creator, yeah, AI is gonna replace that shit. Right? That all that mediocre stories, all that mediocre content, AI can write that shit. If you want to write stories at the level that I'm doing it, I think AI is still far from that, in my opinion. But who knows? I don't know. I don't know about how AI works. So, but I've tried ChatGPT and it's not even close right now. Okay, and also another thing is I stopped trying to fucking predict the future. Like back then, I used to be like, oh, what's gonna happen with this technology? Oh, what's gonna happen now that we have social media? What's gonna happen with the blockchains and NFT? Blah, blah, blah. I stopped doing that because I realized that you could never fucking predict the future. Like 15 years ago, when a smartphone first came out, right? When Instagram and Facebook first came out, when Twitter first came out, right? Just take yourself 15 years ago, right? When it was all about the .com, the hot, the technology, blah blah blah. Could you have ever imagined? Do you think Steve Jobs in his grave, like, do you think Steve Jobs could have ever imagined that this iPhone that he created, that this invention that he created is gonna divide the whole fucking world, is gonna change, it's gonna influence who the fucking president is, it's gonna fucking create revolutions all around the world and fucking, create all this fucking hot mess in this fucking world? Like, do you think Steve Jobs could have ever imagined that? No. Those are the unintended consequences of things. So I just stopped trying to predict the future. Okay, Manan. Is storytelling always from our perspective or the perspective of our target customer? That's a great question. Here's the thing. There's going to be some stories that you tell that's from your perspective, and there's going to be some stories that you tell where you're putting yourself in their shoes, right? But here's the beauty of storytelling. Whenever I tell a story, a personal story, where I'm truly opening up and I'm just truly being vulnerable and truly like dropping my ego and telling that story, what usually happens is it doesn't matter if it's like from the customer, none of that shit matters because it's a human relationship. Like these human experiences that we have, no matter how much we think is fucking unique to us, it's not. Other humans have also had that experience. So as long as you're being authentic, people are gonna feel it. Like that's why the movie Superbad did so much better than all these other high school prom king, prom queen movies because nobody can relate to those guys. But you can relate to somebody who's getting a fake ID that looks fake and going to a fucking store and trying to ask somebody to buy your alcohol. Those kind of stories, everyone can relate to that. Do you know what I mean? Okay. Next question. Herbert wants. Okay, I'm just gonna do a couple more questions, then I think I gotta run. Is it okay to hype your story, like add humor and exaggerate just to make? Yes, that's what you wanna do. Okay, so what I'm saying is this. I think storytelling happens kind of in two steps. So you need that structure of the story, the three parts, the structure that's gonna make the story good. Without that, and that is the meat. That is like the meat of the story. Okay, like. Sorry, if you're a vegetarian, let me try to. Okay, that is the engine. Okay, that's the engine of the story. Without that engine, let's say you have this beautiful fucking Ferrari. You have a beautiful Ferrari, like it looks perfect on the outside, but it's missing an engine. That means that Ferrari is fucking useless, right? So that outside, that beautiful body of the Ferrari, that is all the bells and whistles. That's like how you add humor. You exaggerate and you tell it a certain way, blah, blah, blah. You pause. That's all the bells and whistles. But the structure is the engine. And without the engine, you have nothing. So that's kind of the core of what we're teaching. We're teaching you how to build that engine so that like when you have that Ferrari, now it's amazing. Do you know what I mean? But most people right now is trying to fucking build a Ferrari when they don't have an engine. Okay, I'm gonna do one last one. Sorry guys if I didn't get to your questions. Come back next week and I'll answer them. A child in awe asks, what is the breakthrough story of your students in Night Out that a proud moment for you as a teacher? Great question. Okay. So I don't know if she wants me to share this story. I'll keep it anonymous, right? So there was like a somebody who came and she told the story of like, oh, I had a teacher that was like, that was like kind of telling me not to do this, blah blah blah. But then, but what I did was like, no, I'm gonna do it anyway. And it's like basically what happened is she said, this teacher was like kind of, like underestimating her. But she worked really hard. She's the overachiever, so she did overachieve, and she proved them wrong anyway, right? So what I said was, immediately what I said was like, okay, so you were always an overachiever, because you know how in the story structure I talk about the old you versus the new you, right? I used to be like this until this happened, and then now I'm like this, right? So I said, okay, what's the old you? It sounds like you were always an overachiever. And then this happened and you were still an overachiever, right? So what I said was, I think you might still be in your story of trauma and not healing. And that just fucking, she had like a breakthrough moment at that moment. Because if you're always being an overachiever, you're always a people pleaser, you're always a hustle, then your healing story is going to be like, how to step back, how to not people please, how to not always feel the need to overachieve, how to have a work-life balance. That is your healing story, okay? But let's say you are a lazy fuck and you are never fucking trying hard and blah, 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 and people underestimate you, and then through a lesson you became an overachiever, then you see what I mean? So just because something happened to you doesn't mean that's the healing point. You have to look at the before and the after. So I, like a lot of times that happens. People come and tell a story where they think that, oh, this is my blah, blah, blah. This is my strength. This is what I'm all about. I'm an overachiever, blah, blah, blah. And they come in and it turns out to be, no, that actually turns out to be your weakness. You're in trauma. So this is what I mean. After the 11 weeks that you go through with us, your fucking life is going to be flipped upside down. Everything that you thought was true is going to turn out to be false. Right? Every myth that you thought was true is going to turn out to be false. And that's what makes you say, oh, I never thought of it that way. All right, y'all. That's it for today. Sorry if I didn't get to your questions. I'll come back next week so you can ask then. Please join Night Owl Nation on my website. Or don't if you don't want to. Tomorrow is going to be a podcast episode. So look out for that. Cheers, y'all. Bye.